Hello, welcome back. Project Bob. It's been a while, but you know, I've got all the other bits and bobs out of the way, and now we're back on to Bob. So chassis. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down. If you want to subscribe, then that'll help the channel. Helps the algorithm. Algorithms, that's the word. If you want to contact me, I'm scratching my foot, sorry. If you want to contact me, churchhouseclassics, it's all one word, @gmail.com. I have a website also. It's in the linky under the nose of the stag at the top of my YouTube channel page. And if you're watching on the telly, as quite a few of my viewers do, then churchhouseclassics, all one word, .co.uk, and that's my website. It's not a huge amount of updates or changes on the website, but I try and keep it current with what I'm up to. More of a contact me thing. If you want to buy me a pint or support the channel, because this is all kind of, you know, public service information, this channel, love it and I love doing it, but you know, if you feel the absolute urge to buy me a pint or support the channel, then there's a little PayPal me link at the bottom of the screen down here, and I thank every single person that has donated to me. There's no obligation, but I do thank you from the bottom of my heart, or the bottom of my beer glass if you buy me a pint. Anyway, enjoy the video. So this is the back end of the chassis, off the scrap chassis, off the donor. So what I basically did was chop it right off up against the middle cross member, the one that the A-frame bolts to, and that the Bowes self-leveling strut bolts to, because I've already got that part on here. Hello, Adrian.
Hello there.
So that's in good order, and then I've got the middle cross, well, sorry, the rearmost cross member, which is where the tank forward mount goes onto, and then we're looking at this. So this is the bit that's then missing of that chassis in its entirety. So what we're going to do here, what we've done here, let's say, is we cut along the outside edge of the butt weld that goes along the chassis. The reason I've taken the spring mounts off is because there are holes through the original chassis on the outer edge, and it's been patched, and I'm not terribly happy with it. And you can see that, that's not pretty. So judging by the other welds I've been fucking around with, I decided I'm going to cut those off. And that's probably also the easiest way to splice these two parts of chassis back together again. Because on the inside of the chassis rail, you will notice how clean this is. On the inside edge of the chassis rail, we've got these big half moon shaped strengthening pieces, top and bottom. Now I've not disturbed those on the main part of Bob's chassis. And when I cut that in exactly the same way, I'm not going to disturb them on the outside of the chassis. And then it's a case of, we will flap back in here and take off the remains of the outer half of the chassis. And we'll do the same with that one. And we should be able to get a nice overlap weld on this. And the only non-standard weld we're going to get on this is along that edge there. Now that is most of the bit that I need now. It's upside down. You can see what I've done there. Spring mounts, got the reinforcing plates on the inside. Cut it inboard of the original lap weld. I'm going to grind all this lot back, cut it gently, see if we can get the two skins separated. So we want the foreskin. No, that's wrong. That's just wrong. And then here, we've got the remains of the inner side. And I'll be able to get that plate off down there. That's good, because I need that. I've got two of those to get off. But yeah, I think we are getting someplace. Okay, butchered this rear cross member a little bit, but I don't need that bit. I need that bit. Fucking hell. Now, there is a reinforcing piece in here. I think it's just it's like a top hat piece in there. which I'm going to keep hold of. And that also explains what some of the shit was that I found in one of these holes. It's kind of this inside the chassis, just by the rear body mount, rearwards of the thing. There's a little top hat welded piece in there. It's coming back together again. Basically what I'm doing is I've peeled off the second skin, not the fourth skin, on each of the halves. I've got it roughly aligned now. As you can see, it's a little bit wider than it needs to be on both sides because I've splayed the chassis rail out by a good ½ inch. It's probably going to be nearer an inch by the time we get up to here, which will be about right. So I'm going to knock the piece of wood out in a second once I know that it's not going to be too much of a wrestle to get it into place. And then it's a case of, as you can see, this thing moves around fairly easily. It's going to be a case of making sure that the bottom edge is sitting underneath the flap, which it is. I'll double check all of that. I put a couple of big blobs of weld in there. Measuring, and measuring. Everything, absolutely everything lines up except for one thing, the wheelbase. And it's doing my fucking head in. So I'm going to double check it now. So basically if I measure from that point there to the end of the chassis over here, it's right, it's within a millimetre or two. I need to be more accurate with it, but basically, as you see, I'm just trying to get the chassis level by putting washers underneath it using my big spirit level and then kind of using drop lines and so forth in order to get everything right. I've measured out the centre line of the rear axle turrets as per the diagram, and the distance from there to the back is perfect, which is why I know where the measurement point is there, because those turrets were part of the slave chassis, so I know that that's not been adjusted. It's the distance between that turret and that turret that I'm struggling with. It's about 1.5 inches out. We're still measuring. So basically what I've been doing here, just to kind of explain, is the chassis is obviously not level. It's got quite a curve to it, up and down and up and down and up and down. So what we're trying to do then, find a level point. We've got the chassis leveled up on the floor anyway, so the centre rail is level. Bum, 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 bum. Might need a new bubble for that spirit level soon. And then I take a measurement using washers underneath a cross beam to there. I've marked up the measurement for the holes that I'm talking about here. So those lines there, believe they're for the centre of the bolt line that's there. Those lines there for the centre of those bolt lines, they absolutely are perfect. The measurement is perfect. I need to measure down to this fella here, and this was to find the centre point of the front strut. So I balance my right angle on there. It's level and it points at the screwdriver. Okay, I'll get a bit closer to than that just by using a straight edge along the edge of it. I measure that, and I'm still getting no real understanding as to why. Well, this is turning out to be fun, but it's always best to measure 55 times and just cut the once. So what I've done is I've bolted the original spring turrets back onto this chassis. So not bolted them really, just clamped them on. You can see where the marks were. I haven't really cut any more off this chassis. I've only ever cut things off the donor part, and I have got this thing so that I've measured between the spring turrets, measured the centre of the turret as I would do normally. I've reset that one based against the baseline, measured the wheelbase 99 inches. So I can only assume. Well, I can't assume anything, can I? What the fuck? It tells me the baseline should be 100, and I can't get 100 out of it. Okay, I'll quadruple check this thing. I measured the datum point accurately from the chassis, which is uncut. I even kind of double checked it with that one. I certainly checked it with that one, and that one matched on both sides. My Pythagoras triangle, by the way, I tried it on the scrap chassis, and it fitted beautifully. So now I've got the start point for the black pole as it goes across there. So that piece of black over there. So that goes across, and then I measured from that directly out and marked up the old original spring turrets which I kind of, they all match up beautifully, put a straight edge across it, measure it out, 99 inches to the millimetre, or to the thousandth. I don't know now. Why the fact would they put in it that it's 100 inches when I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. And I've even been kind of marking out 30 centimetre increments and 12-inch increments and just double checking belt and braces all the time. And I cannot get this thing. So I'm absolutely confident now. FF as a datum line is in correct place. CC, which is the centre of the rear axle, has a gap here. Why is there two lines there? Why is there two lines? Okay, let's do now. So 31 less 32 is 408. That's different. I've been thrown out by this figure here. Because it's not. If you look really closely, there's two lines there. And CC is the line that's furthest over to the right, which is 31, which is the overall distance from the FF datum line to the back of the vehicle, less 32, which I've got as 408. So let's try this again now. What I've basically done is gone back to the original manual. I've printed out the 2 pages in the original manual which go through the chassis alignment and various reference points and so forth, and the measurements in millimetres and in inches. And it gives you the tolerances. So what you basically have to do here is look at the number, find the number on here, and then it gives you the measurement that you should be looking at. Now, all I can suggest on this is that you work out what the main datum lines are first of all. So I'm predominantly working on the back end of the chassis here. So I'm going to work with FF as a datum line. And I'm just trying to build some structure around the work that I'm doing and some of the anomalies, the false positives that I'm getting. So I'm getting, you know, as you've seen, the 99-inch wheelbase. I think I'm getting to where we need to be heading with this. So what we've basically got on this sheet of paper here, I've obviously captured the image, blown it right up, then you paint. So the blue line down here is AA. That's between the centre line for the front and back axles. That's what I want to be measuring. That's what I want to be 100 inches. The red line, FF, is the datum line which works for most of the back end of the car. Okay, that's how you align the springs and so forth. Okay, CC, centre line for the rear axle. I know it's a little bit off centre, that one, but the diagram went in a little bit skew with. And BB is the centre line for the front axle. Okay, and all of these things are explained right at the top here. So you've got AA's wheelbase, BB, centre line of front axle, CC, centre line rear axle, DD, frame data line, is over here. It's actually off the end of this picture, and that's where we go. So that's the frame data line. So the frame datum line actually runs along the bottom of the main chassis rail. Okay, right the way along. So part of my problems that I've been having, well, there's 2 or 3 issues that I've been having. First and foremost, I didn't get FF aligned correctly. I don't know why I didn't get FF aligned correctly, because I just assumed that FF actually sat on the top corner of the chassis rail that runs across. However, when you look at the diagram, in fact, because when you look at that, which is the version I was printed from, it looks okay. Now, if I get a zoomed in version of that, did I do a zoomed in version of that? No, I didn't, but I can tell you now that it isn't. It's not on the top corner. It's further back. It actually hangs over the top of that, or over the end of that rail. So what we need to do first and foremost on this car is to establish exactly where FF is as a datum line. Now, because I'm missing the back end of the chassis, I couldn't use this measurement here, 31, in order to establish it. I'll use that when it comes to aligning it, but what I need to do is establish this red line first and foremost. So there's 3 different measurements, or 4 different measurements I can use here. We've got this one here, 29, which is from the rear sill mount. Okay, that one's been welded, so I'm not necessarily that keen on that one, but I can use the other measurements just to actually confirm that it is correct. So we got 25, 26, 27 and 28 are all of these measurements down here will establish where that FF line actually is. The 25 goes right the way to the front of the car, and it goes to, if we look up, it goes to the centre hole. Probably easier if I just show you. Goes to there. Okay, that's 28. 27 goes to the bulkhead mounting. 26 goes to the front sill mount. 25 goes to, 28 goes to the front mounting. So 28 from there, 27 from there, and then we've got that one, and all of those should come to exactly the same point here. And that should then give me this point here, FF. So that's the first problem I had. FF was not in the right place because I assumed, and we know what assumptions do, they make an arse out of you and me. So mother of all fuck up. So now I have now got a better reference for point FF. So from that point I can then measure out to the back end of the chassis using reference 31, which is from FF out to the rear crossmember mounting. Excuse me, a little tickle cough there. I can also work out the centre line. I know the green line's off centre there, but I can also work out the centre line for the rear axle by, if I was to take measurement 31 and subtract 32 from it, because I've already checked 32, because that mounting, when I took the chassis apart, the mounting, spring mounting, top mounting, and that rear section all came from the same chassis. That's not been cut or adjusted. So I know that baseline is correct. So what I can do is I can use 32 to establish the centre line of the rear axle, and then 31 as the distance from point FF. And then I can double check that by subtracting 32 from 31, and that should equal this measurement in here. And that is where I've been going. Now 30 was a herring rouge, because 30, when you zoom in on it, that's front axle, that's cross member, rear axle. 30, there's two different lines, and it's not quite as far here. So 30 is the line that takes you to the front of the seatbelt mounting here. Seatbelt mounting. Okay? That caused me confusion initially. So I think when it comes to looking at these diagrams, it's all well and good looking at a nice engineering diagram like that, but it'd been better if it been A2 or A1 size printed out. Because then I would have noticed that. Now on this particular diagram it's nice and clear, but when you get grubby handprints, which is what I was using yesterday, grubby handprints all over it, sometimes you think, can't quite see this. And that was all yesterday, shite. So looking at this, we can fairly easily get the centre point for the rear axle. We can fairly easily get point FF now by using these measurements here, and then the centre point of the rear axle. So I'm fairly confident now that everything lines up. My biggest concern here was that the centre line from the front to the centre line to the rear was just over 99 inches, and it should be 100. So then I'm thinking, well, what the actual fuck? What is going on here? This is driving me up the wall. And I woke up last night and I thought, let's have a close look at those diagrams, because we had a double line here. Shit, there's a double line there as well. Wankers. So what I was doing to get the centre line of the front axle was measuring from the front cross member, the outside edge of that, to point EE, and point EE is so front cross member, point EE is this line here, and it's a front datum line that goes right across the chassis, and it more or less lines up with the holes. You see the holes for the steering box either side. So what I was doing was taking reference 20 from the front of the chassis to get establish where EE was. Happy with that. This isn't EE telecommunications, it's just a reference number. And then adding to it 24. because that seemed reasonable to me. 24 would then give me BB. Now, this diagram, which is the one I was working from yesterday, actually confused me because BB is there. And you think, okay, well, BB's right above that line. EE's there, BB's there. Can you see that? If I bring it in real close, you can see, right, printed out from the older manual. This is from the 1971 book. All of a sudden, we've still got these two lines, but BB's all the way up here now. So that second line there isn't BB. And this is what I saw this morning and thought, bugger. Right, now, so if we ignore that BB there, we've got these two lines. One of the lines is the leading edge of the engine mountings. So here I've got a nice reference point from that line there to the edge of the engine mounting. And I know that, I basically know where, because I need to weld that engine mounting on still, and there it is. So I've got that reference. That's what 24 gives me. It doesn't give me the centre line of the front axle. So what I've done is I've put the centre line for the front axle further back towards the rear of the car than I should have done. How fucking stupid is that? And that just shows you how accurate you need to be with these things. So effectively now, by moving the centre line further forwards, I'm going to get over 99 now. Probably get the full 100 inches now. And I think that the back end here has been welded in the correct place, and I am comfortable with it. What I'm going to do though, for absolute belt and braces approach here, I've ordered myself a 3 metre tape measure. Rather than a metal tape measure. I wasn't actually using this, wholesale yesterday, but the problem is when you've got a metal tape measure, it's designed to hook over something. So your 1 mil section is sometimes being you're getting a false reading because of that edge there. Now I used this one because it's got a flat edge on the end there, so I was able to hook it over the wood and pull it out for now. Then you've got what, a millimetre and a half of movement in that thing, so that's not going to help. So what I ended up doing there really was using my straight edge, my big long spirit level, and I marked out using my engineer's 300 mil ruler, straight edge, measuring along that to actually get rough measurements of exactly where things go. So I know that I measured those exactly, but everything else was just double checking. I ended up measuring these exactly here, just to get that datum point right at the end of the day, which is where I kind of realised mistake number one. The other thing that's dawned on me last night, that is not level. So what I need to be doing here is looking at the bottom corner of that. Now I was doing that at the end of the testing. And the last thing I want to do, and I was doing this to a certain extent, was that you've actually got DD, which is listed on here as the frame datum line. So this is the line from which all the measurements take place. Because obviously if you've got a chassis going up and down and waving all over the place, point A to point B on DD is going to be shorter than point A up here to point D down there. Sorry, point B down there, because obviously you've got a hypotenuse. So what I need to do really, I think now I'm reasonably confident I've got this thing back in the right location, and it was worth doing this exercise because that gap was more or less closed up the first time I welded this up on both sides. And I realised my mistake with point FF, realigned it all, and it's gone back by, what's that, about 6 mil? So it's gone back by that much. Now we've got a couple of good tag welds on there. I can tip this chassis upside down now. Not now, but when I get ready to measure this thing. So I'm going to tip it upside down, because then I've got the underside of the main chassis rail, which is my point DD, and then everything using a plumb line will be measured from that point. And I'll be able to accurately mark out the centre lines. I'll be able to accurately mark out the alignment and make sure that everything is spot on. Now I've even got to the point where I did measure from the underside of the chassis, shimmed out using a long spirit level. That chap over there, very useful, 2 metre spirit level. So I measured that out there, got it level, and then used a drop line from the mounting on the corner there, pointing at the right thing here, Richard, using the camera, looking at the camera, not looking at yourself, dropped a line down from that, and it was exactly the right height to the millimetre. So I'm confident now that it was in the right location, right orientation. I think that my 99-inch issue was a false positive because I've measured this front axle centre location incorrectly. So, enough rabbiting. Next steps, like I say, get this thing upside down, get myself a fabric tape measure that's going to be much more flexible, get a suitable person to come and help me just hold one end of it in a fixed location while I strip out and measure the other ends, and I think this thing's going to work out beautifully. Right, so going through the practical exercise here, you notice I just moved my bloody twat. Right, I'll double check this in a second. That did move. Arsehole. Right, I can do that again. I know that that bottom edge along there is where line FF should be. FF on the diagram is the datum point that runs through 3/4 of the way down the chassis. So that there I'm happy with. So what I need to do now is measure from FF out to the rear body mount over there. I'll show you how I do that, and then when we know that's in the right place, we know that the spring is in the right place, but then we can deduct 32 from 31 and get the distance from the centre point to there. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, what I'm doing, because reference 31 is on here, we'll do it in millimetres. Reference 31 is 1,333.88 millimetres. Okay, 133.4 centimetres we'll go for. And I get my straight edge, which is over here. It's probably on here already. 133.4. So if I balance that on there, what I need to do is put 133.4 millimetres on that bit, get myself a zip tie. Here's one. Here's a friendly zip tie I borrowed earlier on. And all I was doing was put that around there. Is that going to be too much, that zip tie? Yes, it's going to be too much. Give me 1 second. Right, so all I'm doing, because I'm working on my own, get a zip tie, pull them around this end here, and do them up until we know that the spirit level is level. That's it. Right angle. I've got the right angle. What I want to do now is take my reference point, which is 133.4, and I want to put my right angle against it, like that. I know my yellow tape measure is, sorry, I know my yellow spirit level is level, and then I butt it up against the bottom edge of the black FF point. The other thing I need to make sure is that I am in line with the bolt hole at the end, and that will come clear in a second. So we are obviously doing this with a fabric tape measure is going to make life so much easier. But I've measured this about 15 times now. Right, so that is in the right location. We'll put that there. Next thing we need is a small spirit level. We need this because we need a right angle at this end and my ruler. In fact, I'll probably just do this one with the tape measure. What I need to do now is to measure this to the middle of this hole. So if that's level, and it is, and this is vertical, and it is, that measurement is absolutely on the nail. Because what we've basically done here is we've got ourselves a nice right angle, you can't see, a right angle here, sitting on top of that measurement there. Now, if I didn't have that piece of wood on the centre line, it wouldn't have been a problem. But I didn't want to take the piece of wood off the centre line, so I know that that is correct now. So what I need to do next is to measure from this point the centre line, which I should be able to do. And that's the way I've done it, on both sides, absolutely on the nail, works beautifully. I'm just using a bit of Pythagoras. When it came to these holes down here for the damper mounts not lining up, I just think that that is something that was put on at the factory by whoever did it. So whoever did it, put them where they want. And I think that they went on the inside of the chassis rail, and then when the two halves were welded together, they drilled through. So I'm not too bothered about that. There's no specific measurements on any of the diagrams for those damper hole mounts, just to give you a rough indication of where they should be. Or explains that they're there, but it doesn't really give you that much information around them. So, that's it really. Like I say, I'm confident it's in the right location. I need to get the fabric tape measured just so I can double check it for the final time. When it's upside down, I shall put a couple of tack welds on the bottom of the chassis rails, and then I can finish welding it in. And get it all finished. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? And then when I've got the centre line for the front axle measured, but I mean the thing is, from this point here, which hasn't been changed, to that point there, which hasn't been changed to here, I'm fairly confident now that this is square. I just think I was getting a false positive when it came to the 99 inches. It's a pain in the balls really, isn't it? Wasted half a day on that yesterday. Measuring and measuring and measuring again, but I'd rather waste half a day measuring 15 times than weld the chassis up, get the body on it, and then find it's half an inch out, which it isn't. Right, so there's a reasonable amount of work still to do on this chassis. I still need to cut out these sections. Let's take the ruler out. I still need to cut this section out and replace the section in here, which I shall do tidy, and I shall make all this good at the same time. On both sides, and then drill a hole through so that the water can actually drain out. And I think that's about it really on this, for this episode anyway. I think in the next episode we're going to be have welded this all together, and it'll be sitting on its axles. Oh yes.